Hello and welcome to this week's Q&A. I have two questions from fellow retreaters, and I've included this week one really common question that gets explored in private sessions all the time. So let's get into it. The first question is, how does one balance being present with a heavy mental load in tumultuous times? A great question. I just want to give you some context around this person. There was a lot more sort of information in it, so I'm just going to give it to you in point form. This person has a new baby. Their primary relationship is quite rocky. They have career demands and a lot of inner conflict about parent and work time spent, and a lot of emotional stress. Feeling overwhelmed, overloaded, overburdened are the main sort of themes of this. So how does one balance being present with a heavy mental load in tumultuous times? My response to this, the first thing, which is going to be a little bit of a theme for today's Q&A, is slow down. When we get overloaded and overwhelmed, our mind can get very racy because we're essentially living in a constant state of fight or flight response. So we're having that racing mind and everything feels urgent, and your mind, anxiety, remember, is worrying about the future, continues to go from where I am now to where I'm going to be. How am I going to cope if and when, fill in the gap. And that sort of mind behavior or mind activity is constant when you're in that state of overload, because you're trying to, in your mind, plug holes all the time. And it's just not necessary because you're not there yet. So step one to how does one balance being present? It's to practice the weekly themes of the retreat. Be aware when your mind is rushing ahead, is ruminating about the past, is worrying about things that haven't happened yet. I'm all for planning. I'm all for having a practical plan about how logistically things might work, or how practically things might work, or what sort of response I might have if this happens. That's like, preparing yourself. But then worrying about what the other person says, or what if I say that or do this and then this happens, that's not helpful. And this is where self-discipline comes in. So planning or preparing in your mind some solutions or steps that you might take should a problem arise, and then not allowing yourself to go the next step about what if that doesn't work. You've got to start practicing, self-trust. Remember the mantras. I trust I'll know what to do, and I'll trust I'll be able to cope. So I trust that the resources that I have within myself and in my support network will help me figure out what to do. Remember, that's our inner compass, our values and our visions, and my anchor, my breathing and my mind state practice will help me cope with the stress of that potential problem happening in the future. So really cultivating and practicing self-trust in the moment in relation to what your mind is suggesting could be a problem in the future. So slow down and stay very present. The discipline to notice when you've gone off course or too far ahead and bring your mind back. Just gently say to yourself, it's okay, I don't need to worry about that right now. Particularly if you're in the middle of a task at work, or you're with baby or with someone or listening to a podcast, just remind yourself one thing at a time, and right now I'm doing whatever it is. Support people are really important through these really, really difficult times. One or two people who you confide in, and not many more than that if possible. The more you talk about your problems to too many people, the more confusing it is. And I can really reflect on this, in my past, many years ago, probably 20s and 30s, when I had a lot of sort of things that were confusing me and I was feeling quite turbulent. I would talk about my problems all the time, and people give you all sorts of different advice and you become more confused. What we're wanting here is for you to have a couple of support people who you can bounce ideas off, soundboarding, and get emotional support. But really what we're wanting is for you to practice tapping into your values, your inner compass, your inner anchor, to come up with your own decisions about how you're going to navigate the next, problem. And then you go to them and say, well, this is happening and this is what I was thinking of doing. What do you think about that? And just get their feedback. And if you're really not sure, just say, I'm not really sure what to do, which is understandable. A really important part of my work is when people are overwhelmed, they actually don't have the capacity to think. So it is my role sometimes to suggest, maybe you could try this or do that. And your soundboarding people can be good for that if you feel that exact conundrum of, I really even can't think about what I need to do. And then the last thing is self-care, self-care, self-care. Psychological, emotional and physical self-care. You must put your well-being first when you're in turbulent times. I know it sometimes can feel like it's the wrong priority, but I can assure you it's the absolute critical priority. Because if you are the one that holds the majority of the responsibility for your baby's well-being, for your financial well-being in in your family, or whatever it is, if you hold the majority of responsibility, then doesn't it make sense? Isn't it critical that you are well all the time? So this is in the dashboard of the retreat, the 5 self-care practices, making sure you're eating well, a balanced diet, nice light meals. You're better off to have 3 sort of light to moderate meals rather than snacking all day, and make sure you're getting a good balance of nutritious macronutrients in protein and lots of vegetables and fruit and grains and things like that. Rest and calming practices, and making sure you're connecting. So eat and move every day. Again, I think one of the most helpful things in turbulent times is walking. Solvitur ambulando, everyone. It is solved by walking. If you're feeling a lot of emotional turbulence, if you're feeling mental mind racing, put your shoes on, I don't care, thongs, whatever, and go for a walk. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour. I've got in my playlist on my Spotify, Joe Woods, under my just profile name, Solvitur Ambulando playlist, and I also have one called Peaceful, which I often go to if I'm feeling my mind's too busy, and I just put that on and I go for a walk and just everything just settles, and I just do some, problem solving and what have you. So walking to move emotion through the body, to calm the nervous system and to clear the mind. So that is that first question. Thank you for that. The second one, I'm really good at practicing observing self and self-awareness, impermanence, and calm and clear, and all the other lovely teachings you've given me. However, I do struggle when I'm in a high pressure situation to put that into practice in my workplace. Therefore, I still come across as running around like a headless chook. And even my workmate said, you just need to slow down. That's what I struggle to put in practice in the moment. Any tips would be greatly appreciated. Well, headless chook, and that's what I was saying in that first response about slowing down. And I love that your workmate is suggesting that to you, and your workmate is 100% on the money. When you say you struggle in high pressure situations and I struggle to put in practice in the moment, there's a bit of a belief in there that's keeping you stuck, I suggest. I struggle to, they're full self-statements, and what we're really wanting is for you to create some room for you to practice a new behaviour. So I have been in the habit of, or there's a part of me that gets hooked in high pressure situations, and I think this is important, and I'm unaware that I'm in that racing headless chook state. What we're wanting you to practice here is awareness. Number one, aware that I'm in the headless chook state, aware that I'm hooked by my to-do list and a sense of urgency, which usually, I would say most of the time, isn't warranted. And of course, even if there is a sense of urgency with work deadlines and things like that, if you're in that, again, low level state of fight or flight, that really pressure cooker situation, think about hand as brain. You can't think clearly when you're in that state. So the best thing to do is slow down, slow your mind down, slow your emotion, your physiology down. Everything that you're feeling in that sort of tension needs to calm down and slow down. Walking, go for a 5-minute walk. So awareness, and then acceptance. Oh gosh, I've got stuck in racing mind again, or headless chook again, whatever you want to call it. There's that part of me, the headless chook part, that feels that I have to be working at this pace to be of value, and it's not true. You are better to be in a calm mind state, in a calm emotional state in your workplace and in every part of our life. So you bring into play another part of you that says to headless chook, there's no need for you to be working at this pace. It's okay. Just going to slow down and collect my thoughts and make sure that I'm being productive and efficient with my time, rather than becoming overwhelmed and then not able to think. What was the other bit I was going to say? A tip. So yes, awareness of being headless in the headless chook state, acceptance of that, acceptance of your tendency and trait, compassion to that part of you that's in the habit of racing mind and working at that pace, and then bringing into play the other part and practice being in the here and now. And I guess doing a prioritization practice. What's the most important thing to do right now, and just do that. Same as the other question, one thing at a time. Clarify the most important thing to do right now and do that, and then come to the next task and the next task. That's how we work in a mindful way. Thank you for that question. Really good, and I'm sure everyone appreciates that, because for sure we've all experienced that in our work life or our home life, when we get into that extremely frenetic state, and again, we are not able to be calm and clear when we're in that state. So slow down, calm down, and proceed with clarity. My common question that I just was, when I was walking this morning and just thinking about my sessions that I've had this week, and another situation where someone's talking and you can just sense there's this really big, heavy question hanging over their head. And I often ask this question, and that is, do you think there's something fundamentally wrong with you? And most of the time when I ask that question, the person will cry, because it's this relief in some sense that someone understands or has seen that anguish, and also the despair that, yes, I do, which is what the response is always. If they have that emotional reactivity, it is, yeah, I do. I think there could be something really wrong with me, because I can't regulate my emotions. I can't stay in a relationship. I don't get along with my parents. Whatever it is, just this judgment of the self over time, looking back in my history and thinking, I really don't cope well with whatever it is, fill in the gap, or I've never really been able to fill in the gap. I'm not where I thought I'd be. All my friends, like, a lot of comparison is happening here. A lot of my friends are already married and have children, and I'm not. There must be something wrong with me. I can't seem to find someone to love me. I can't hold down a job. I can't save money. Whatever it is. That, again, remember, thought, repeated belief. So that leads a person to create a narrative, because they feel anxious a lot in their body. They feel flawed. They feel sad, projecting to the outside world, coping and happy, but actually internally feel anxious and sad. Something like that. Very contrasting inner world and persona. So that inner world experience that they're hiding makes them think that there's something wrong with them. So self-attunement is so important. And also, just quickly, by the way, this could also be something physical, like if you're having headaches, or you feel funny in your tummy. This is that part of us that has a physical symptom and then goes straight to catastrophic thinking. Maybe I've got a brain tumour, maybe I've got stomach cancer, maybe I've got MND or sclerosis or something like that. Very, very common for our mind to do that, because we're hearing it all the time, friends and family members, and in the news, this, tragic story, and then we think, gosh, if that happened to me or my family member. So it's in our, unconscious mind, but it comes into our sub and conscious mind when we notice a symptom that we've heard about. So self-attunement is really critical for this conversation, that you, again, self-trust, that you're attuned to your mind and your body, and that you get to know yourself and how you feel in your emotional state, and how you feel, and noticing your mind and the narratives and your traits and tendencies of your temperament in your primary relationship or in your familial relationships or whatever it is. Really having that self-knowledge, aka the retreat. Wisdom is the last week theme, and that is self-knowledge. So being attuned to yourself and knowing yourself well helps you when you have those critiquing thoughts or worrisome thoughts about self. Is there something wrong with me? Well, no. And then, that's the next step, is clarify for yourself, what is it that I'm perceiving might be wrong with me? And be as clear as you can with yourself about the narrative of what you think is wrong. And then, do a process of elimination, like, what is the likelihood of that? Is that really true? I have had stomach upsets, but I have been really stressed at work a lot. And this is a physical symptom. Remember, gut-brain health. Your gut, trust your gut. Your gut is absolutely informing your inner world experience. Knots in the tummy. I certainly can say for myself, I'm aware of that. If I'm anxious, I get tight in my glutes and in my tummy. So I have attunement to that. And then the last piece to this is, if you are worrying for a significant period of time and you've practiced attunement and you're sort of convincing yourself, look, there's nothing really wrong, but in the back of your mind there's a gnawing worry about something physical wrong with you, or psychologically or emotionally, whatever it is, book in an appointment with the appropriate practitioner or physician and get checked out. This is a peace of mind exercise. This is you going to have the scan or the checkup, the blood pressure, the blood test, and to get the result back for you to say, okay, here is the evidence. There is nothing wrong with me. So I need to practice some more self-care and really get some calming practices into play. You can hear my dog shaking and scratching. I hope that's helpful. It's such a common question, and it's also one that I can disclose. The anxieties that I experienced through my 20s were twofold. The main one was health anxiety, which is why I really wanted to share this, because it's very, very common. Having some health symptoms and then catastrophizing about that. But actually, it was anxiety. And the anxiety, remember state, I had anxiety in my body, that knots in the tummy, just not feeling quite right. And then I put a story on top of that because I wasn't attuned. I didn't really understand anxiety. So there must be something wrong with me. So there was a disconnect between how I was in my body and how I presented myself. Happy-go-lucky, but inside, not so much. And then the other anxiety was, relationship anxiety, just that never finding that a comfortable spot, and then that created anxiety. And then I thought there's something wrong with me because I can't do that. But again, I just didn't have enough self-knowledge to be able to anchor myself in those moments of the stormy emotional times, and learn how to be with the other person and myself and move through those conversations and take breaks and all of that, which we talk about here and in private sessions. So there it is. Is there something wrong with me? My general response to that is, it's very unlikely there's something wrong. And if you are really feeling sure that there could be, then get it checked out. But the first step is self-attunement, getting to know yourself and really learning how to practice that anchoring, calming, getting yourself into a calm mind and body. And then say, do I still feel or think there's something wrong with me? Thanks for being here, just on 20 minutes. I hope you have a great weekend. Keep your questions and reflections coming. They're really, really important and helpful for everyone moving through the retreat. So thank you for those who have been sending them in, and for those that haven't, send something in. Just something like a problem or an issue that you're facing at the moment. Just send that to me in a brief statement of what's happening, and I'll just talk about it generally like this. Could be really helpful for you, but definitely helpful for everyone as well. See you next week.